AskReddit. What is your cougar story? Her husband passed and her 2 sons were in middle school. I was in high school and had a truck and a PT job. Her sons played soccer with my younger brother, so we all became friends. Had been spending a lot of time at their house hanging with the younger boys. Her husband, who passed, had a drag car and frequented local drag strip until death. She wanted to drive his car at a big event honoring his memory, but couldn't drive truck and trailer. She asked if I could drive for her and help with the track duties. We got friendly and would go to her house on weekends to drink and play pool. Her birthday comes around and I decided to help her 2 sons buy gifts, cards and cake without her knowing, to surprise her on her birthday. When she realized it was me that made her boys so happy, it was game on. Best I've ever had. Story 2. She, 42 years old, had moved to the US from Cuba, hadn't had any in a long time. I, 23, was in a separation during my marriage, staying with another coworker in the same complex. I went over to help her put together some furniture she had bought. We were talking the whole time and there was certainly some chemistry there. It's the peak of summer in a cheap apartment complex, so it's hot as hell. I decided to take off my shirt as I finished up the piece I was on and caught her staring out of the corner of my eye. She was biting her lip, and when I turned around she was flustered and started walking toward the door saying, "Wow, thank you. You are, must be hot. Maybe you should go to the pool or something. I'm sure there's prettier ladies there that are close to your age. Thank you for helping an old lady like me." One thing led to another and we became FWB for a few months. The sex was amazing. Story 3. She was recently divorced. Turned in for a younger model despite being hotter than hell. Her youngest kid was about my age and off at some fancy college. I met her when my landlord's wife's brothers were hired to do some roofing work at her house, and I agreed to be yard cleanup guy for some fast cash. She had money, and I was a college student with little money. We did fun stuff, hiking, skiing, weekend getaways to her parents' beach cottage. She was a lot of fun, but I was a secret she kept from her family and almost all of her friends, and that wasn't going to change ever. I wasn't looking for a serious relationship at the time, and she was only looking for a good time. It was great while it lasted, and I don't regret a minute of it. I wish we could have stayed friends because she was a funny, confident, interesting woman. Story 4. I was 25 years old and would guess her to be in her late 40s. A friend of mine and I were out at a bar in Tampa. I worked for one of the local pro sports teams and he was in town visiting. My buddy is a puss hound and found a lady to dance with right away. I noticed her friend, let's call her, and sitting alone at a 4-top table and asked if it was okay to join. We chatted and as the drinks flowed we sat closer and closer. My buddy said he was giving his new friend a ride home. We came in my truck, so that meant I needed a ride. And volunteered to give me a ride back to my place. I invited an in for a drink and realized the only thing I had was beer or tequila. After the second shot, and excused herself to use the bathroom. I went and grabbed a couple of beers and sat on the couch. A couple minutes later and returned to the doorway fully nude. She was tall, 5 feet 9 inches or so, huge titties and little thicker than girls my age, but she owned it. She told me to stand up and get naked. We both had worked up a sweat dancing earlier that night and a shower would be welcome. I stood behind her and lathered up her back and ass, then reached around and cupped those huge boobs. All of this led to a night of amazing sex and a final round at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. Wanting to exchange numbers, she smiled, gave me one last kiss, and said that probably wouldn't be a good idea. She did say that our night was exactly what she needed. Never saw her again, figured she was married. Great night. Story 5. Was out drunk with a bunch of buddies walking down the street when a school bus stopped next to me and opened the door. For some reason I just got on. It turned out to be about 30 middle-aged women out for some event. They greeted me with, "Show us your dick," chants, so I obliged. Then rode with them to a bar about 25 minutes outside the city and partied with them all night. This was early cell phone days, so for some reason I didn't have a phone on me and had no way of getting home, so I went home with one of the women and had a fun fucking night. Funny thing is, as we were walking out of the house in the morning, I met her 22-year-old son. I was 22 at the time, and that fact blew my mind more than anything that happened the night before. Story 6. I'm from the UK and got a sweet gig working for a soccer coaching company in States in my late 20s. Got posted in Beverly Hills of all places, couldn't believe it. The guy who runs the company messages all the families who sign their kids up for camp if they can host the coaches. Genius idea from him, and we as coaches couldn't believe how many families signed up. Dangerous game, could write a book on what went on. I get hosted by this rich half-Korean mum whose son is signed up for soccer. First week there, she plays a British movie for us to watch and near the end starts patting the dog on the couch while the boy is asleep, all the while just gently stroking my knob as she pats the dog. I didn't do anything, frozen as one wrong move, and my 1-year working visa is out the window and I'm on the first plane home. She then hosts a house party that weekend while the boy was away with the father. Everyone left and she was on me like a flash. Fucked her 3 times over the next 10 days, then one morning she says, "You have to move out, hosting isn't for me." She was clearly crazy as a box of frogs, but good times smashing a Cougar in Beverly Hills for a bit. Story 7. I was 28, she was 38. She was my realtor. Smoking hot American Vietnamese woman with a voluptuous body and super cute personality. I always had a thing for her and could tell she did for me, but I kept it professional with just light flirting as we were looking at different properties together. I found a place I wanted and she showed up at closing wearing a gorgeous dress that accentuated all her beautiful curves. As soon as the closing was done, as we were walking out of the building, I asked her out. We went out for drinks right after closing and ended up dating, hooking up for 4 months. It was glorious. That was 7 years ago, and in that time I have seen her a few times and hung out. She is an amazing person on top of all the physical. Great times. Story 8. Met her online. I was 26, she was 43 I believe, and she was coming over to have a quick hookup. She was in an open relationship and just looking for a one-night stand. Ended up waiting a while for her to get there, so I had a few drinks and ended up giving myself whiskey dick. Haha, went down on her, so at least one of us came, but she was sort of unpleasant to be around, so I'm not sure it was all the alcohol's fault for my fella not wanting to rise to the occasion. LOL. Would definitely like to try again with another cougar who I connect better with though, as I think I would probably like it. Story 9. I was 21 and working in a gym and ended up taking home a 40-something who was a regular member there. She always looked good in her spandex, her tits were robust and she had an attractive face. Went to her place and started making out. I started pulling her leotard off and once that was down, unsnapped her bra. It wasn't like any bra I'd seen, and once it came off those tits dropped 5 inches. So did my hard on. She sucked on it pretty well, at least well enough for me to stiffen up enough to bend her over her couch and plow long for a few minutes and finish. She tried to get me to stay and offer dinner, but I couldn't get out of there quick enough. 0 stars, would not recommend. Story 10. I went to a bar near my folks' house not knowing it was a cougar hangout. An older blonde cozied up to me and we start chatting. I'm not really into blondes, but she was attractive and we got along. We go back to her place and I immediately feel off. This was not a single woman's house. I resigned myself to this fate and so we got into it. Sex was great and I felt really bad. But I was drunk and horny, so I said I'd deal with it tomorrow. Anyways, we finally tire out at like 4 in the morning smoking a cigarette on the back patio when she freaks out and runs upstairs. I think oh shit, her boyfriend is home and begin to make my way to grab my stuff and go. Nope. She forgot to turn off the recording. Her husband and her are ENM, but he likes to watch videos of her with strangers. Anyways, we hung out often after that and met the husband. We shared an affinity for history. They swang, so whenever I had a girl, I'd see if she was interested and bring her over. Cheers.